The High Hunt Master Zexkar stood before the great council of Nexor, his iridescent scales gleaming under the purple light of their 3 suns. He'd practiced this speech for what felt like decades, though in reality, it had only been a few standard rotations. The council chambers, with their towering spires made of bones from legendary hunts, seemed to lean in to hear his words. "Esteemed council members," he began, trying not to preen too obviously, "I bring news of a discovery that will cement our place as the greatest hunters in the known galaxy." He paused for dramatic effect, something he'd learned from watching too many historical hunt documentaries. "We have found Earth." The silence that followed was about as impressive as a Gornax failing its first hunt, which is to say, not at all. One of the council members actually yawned, displaying an impressive array of serrated teeth. "And?" Elder Curthrix asked, clearly wondering if she could squeeze in a quick nap before her afternoon hunt. Zexkar cleared his throat. "And it's inhabited by a species called humans. They're bipedal, mostly hairless except for these weird patches, and they have absolutely no natural defenses. No claws, no venom, no extra limbs for combat. They're practically begging to be hunted." That got their attention. The council members straightened in their bone thrones, their hunting ridges rising with interest. "Our long-range scanners show they spend most of their time in artificial structures," Zexkar continued, warming to his subject. "They rarely venture into the wild spaces of their world, and when they do, they carry primitive tools for protection. It's almost cute, really, like watching a baby Nexorian trying to hunt with a toy spear." The council chamber erupted in laughter. Elder Curthrix wiped a tear from her third eye. "They sound delightful, almost too easy, though. Where's the challenge?" Zexkar clicked his mandibles in what passed for a smirk among his kind. "That's the beauty of it. We can use them for training our younglings. Think about it, a safe, controlled environment for first hunts. No more losing promising young hunters to the razor beasts of Crawl or the phantom predators of the Void Plains." "And their defenses?" another council member asked. "Surely they have some form of military?" "Oh yes," Zexkar said, trying not to snort. "They have these adorable metal vehicles that roll on the ground and flying machines that move slower than a sedated blorg. Their weapons use chemical propulsion. Practically ancient technology. The most advanced thing we've detected is something they call nuclear weapons, which they're apparently too scared to even use." The council members shared knowing looks. Everyone remembered their first encounter with a truly primitive species. It was always good for a laugh at future hunting gatherings. "Very well," Elder Curthrix declared, her hunting ridges now fully extended in anticipation. "Prepare a hunting party. We'll make this an official First Blood expedition for the upcoming graduation class." Zexkar bowed, trying to contain his excitement. This would go down in the historical archives, and his name would be attached to it. Future generations would study how he, High Hunt Master Zexkar, discovered the perfect training grounds for young Nexorian hunters. As he left the council chamber, he couldn't help but imagine the looks on the humans' faces when they first encountered real predators. They'd probably try to communicate, maybe offer some form of trade agreement. That's what primitive species usually did right before they learned their place in the galactic food chain. "Computer," he spoke to his personal device, "begin preparations for a training hunt expedition to Earth, and add a note, bring recording devices. This is going to be entertainment gold for next season's hunting channel." The computer chirped an acknowledgement, and Zexkar allowed himself a moment of pure satisfaction. He had no way of knowing that his name would indeed go down in history, just not in the way he expected. The Nexorian hunting vessel dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Sol system, its obsidian hull reflecting the distant sunlight. On the bridge, hunt leader Vixital watched his crew of young hunters practically vibrating with excitement. This would be their first real hunt, and he remembered his own inaugural expedition with fond nostalgia. "Maintain stealth protocols," he ordered, more out of habit than necessity. Though with their primitive technology, they probably couldn't detect a solar flare if it hit them in the face. Meanwhile, deep within Cheyenne Mountain, "Sir, you're going to want to see this." Lieutenant Rodriguez's fingers flew across his keyboard, bringing up multiple displays. "Our deep space monitoring system just picked up something weird." General Thompson leaned over the lieutenant's shoulder, coffee cup frozen halfway to his mouth. On the screen, Complex energy signatures pulsed in patterns that definitely weren't natural phenomena. Define weird, Lieutenant. The energy signature matches nothing in our database, sir, and it's decelerating. Controlled deceleration at the edge of our solar system. The General's coffee cup never made it to his lips. Get me Commander Chen, now! Across the base, Commander Chen was already awake, despite the ungodly hour. She stood in the training room, watching her team run through their millionth simulation of first contact scenarios. They'd been preparing for this possibility since the classified Pentagon report 3 months ago suggested Earth wasn't as alone as people thought. Her phone buzzed. Chen, Commander, we have a situation, Code Omega. Chen didn't even blink. About damn time, we were starting to get bored down here. 20 minutes later, in the war room, Chen stood before a gathering of Earth's top military brass in person and via secure video link. The atmosphere was tense, but she noticed more than a few excited grins. They'd been preparing for this moment for years. Ladies and gentlemen, she began, it seems we have visitors, and based on their approach vector and attempt at stealth, they're not here for a diplomatic cup of tea. Back in space, Vixatal was giving his final briefing to the hunting party. Remember, younglings, this is supposed to be easy. These humans are practically prey animals. Just don't get overconfident and... What's so funny, Crixenor? The young hunter tried to compose himself. Sorry, hunt leader, it's just... Look at their global communications. They're broadcasting something called cat videos everywhere. How dangerous can a species be when they spend their time watching small furry animals knock things over? In the war room, Commander Chen was finishing her briefing. Team Alpha will deploy here. She pointed to a location on the holographic map. Team Beta takes this ridge. We've got thermal dampeners, acoustic scramblers, and the new active camouflage suits. Plus, she grinned, a few surprises R&D has been dying to field test. Commander, one of the generals spoke up, are you sure about this approach? We could just blast them out of the sky. Chen shook her head. With all due respect, sir, where's the fun in that? Besides, our visitors clearly think they're the apex predators here. I say we give them the full Earth experience. Her team, scattered around the room, shared knowing smiles. They'd been chosen for this task because they were the best of the best and slightly unhinged, according to their psych evaluations. The Nexorian ship entered Earth's atmosphere at midnight local time, cloaking technology engaged, heading for a remote area they'd selected for the hunt. Vixatal watched his young charges prepare their weapons and hunting gear, each one certain they were about to participate in the easiest hunt of their lives. In the mountains below, Commander Chen checked her equipment one last time. The new adaptive camouflage rippled across her suit like liquid shadow. Her team was in position, environmental mimetics active, weapons hot but silent. All units, check in, she whispered into her comm. One by one, her team responded, their positions creating a perfect kill box around the projected landing zone. Remember, people, she said, allowing herself a small smirk, we're not just defending Earth here, we're teaching an object lesson in the dangers of underestimating your prey. Let's show these aliens what happens when you try to hunt the hunters. The night was still, the air electric with anticipation. Above, the Nexorian ship began its final descent, its occupants blissfully unaware they were flying straight into a trap. Chen clicked off her comm and whispered to herself, welcome to Earth, you overconfident lizards. Class is in session. The Nexorian ship touched down in a clearing within the Rocky Mountains, its landing thrusters barely disturbing the pine needles below. Hunt leader Vixatal performed one final scan of the area, which showed exactly what he expected, nothing but local wildlife scattering from their arrival. Perfect landing zone, he announced to his eager hunting party. Scans show a human settlement approximately 20 kilometers north. We'll start there. 3 kilometers away, Commander Chen watched the alien ship's landing through her advanced optical system. The corners of her mouth twitched upward as she tracked multiple heat signatures emerging from the vessel. Control, this is Phantom Lead. Visitors have arrived for dinner, though I think there's been a confusion about who's serving and who's being served. Copy that, Phantom Lead. General Thompson's voice crackled through her earpiece. You have full operational authority. Try not to have too much fun. No promises, sir. The hunting party spread out in a standard search formation, their high-tech armor gleaming dully in the moonlight. Each young Nexorian carried an array of weapons that would have made their ancestors proud. Plasma rifles, neural disruptors, and traditional blade weapons for the final kill. Crixenor, the youngest of the group, activated his biosensor suite. Hunt leader, I'm picking up multiple small life signs, nothing larger than a local quadruped they call a deer. He paused, adjusting his settings, though there's some weird interference in the northern sector. Vixatal dismissed the concern with a wave of his clawed hand. Probably atmospheric distortion. These primitive worlds often have unstable weather patterns. In her hidden position, Lieutenant Wong of Chen's team adjusted the settings on their quantum interference generator. The device, barely larger than a smartphone, created a field that played havoc with any scanning technology less advanced than their own, which, as it turned out, included Nexorian biosensors. "Package is wrapped, Commander," Wong whispered into her comm. "They're seeing what we want them to see." Chen's response was typically succinct. "Good, let's give them the tour." The hunting party moved through the forest with what they assumed was stealthy precision. To the human operators watching through their multispectral imaging systems, the aliens might as well have been wearing disco balls and carrying strobe lights. "Look at these tracks," one of the young hunters called out, pointing to marks in the soil. "Primitive boot prints. They don't even use gravitic suspension in their footwear." The primitive boot prints had been left there 3 hours ago by Chen's team, using specially manufactured soles designed to appear like standard hiking boots. The trail led directly into the first ambush zone. Vixatal felt a surge of pride as his hunters followed proper protocol, spreading out to track their prey while maintaining communication links. Everything was going exactly according to plan. That's when the forest came alive, and it started subtly, a rustle here, a shadow there, nothing their senses could pin down, but enough to make hunting ridges twitch nervously. Then came the sounds, whispers that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere, carried on the wind. "Getting some strange acoustic readings," Crixenor reported, trying to maintain his professional demeanor despite his rising excitement. "Could be human communication, or it could be our acoustic warfare system using their own motion and speech patterns to create ghosted signals," Lieutenant Rodriguez muttered from his hidden position, fingers dancing across his tactical pad. "But sure, kid, let's go with your theory." The hunting party continued forward, now moving with noticeably less confidence. They passed through stands of trees, where hidden cameras tracked their every move, under branches holding concealed sensor arrays, and past rocks that housed enough computing power to run a small city. "Hunt leader," one of the party called out, "I'm detecting an energy signature ahead, very faint, but it matches human technology profiles." Vixatal raised his hand, signaling the group to halt. "Remember your training. Humans are physically weak, but they compensate with tools. Stay alert for primitive weapons." Commander Chen watched the aliens react to the bait, a deliberately leaked energy signature from what appeared to be a simple camping site. Her team had spent days setting up this elaborate chessboard, and now the pieces were finally moving. "All units," she whispered, "Phase 1 complete, initiate Phase 2. Let's show our guests some real hunting technology." Around the clearing, hidden panels in the ground and trees silently opened. Micro-drones no larger than insects emerged, their sophisticated sensor and projection systems creating a web of surveillance and deception. The air itself seemed to shimmer as advanced metamaterials bent light and sound in ways that would make physics professors weep with joy. The young Nexorian hunters were about to learn a valuable lesson about assumptions and technological superiority. Unfortunately for them, it would not be a gentle teaching experience. "Control," Chen reported, her voice carrying a hint of predatory satisfaction. "The classroom is prepared. Permission to begin the lesson." General Thompson's response carried its own note of anticipation. "Permission granted, Commander. Show them why humanity stopped being prey a very, very long time ago." As if on cue, the forest fell completely silent, the kind of silence that makes apex predators remember what it felt like to be prey. In the command center, General Thompson raised his coffee cup in a toast. "Class is in session." The first sign that something was terribly wrong came when Crixenor's bioscanner started showing impossible readings. Heat signatures appeared and disappeared like ghosts, moving in patterns that defied both physics and logic. One moment, his display showed a single human-sized contact ahead. The next, it multiplied into dozens, then vanished completely. "Hunt leader," he whispered, mandibles clicking nervously. "I think our equipment is malfunctioning." Vixatal checked his own readings, his hunting ridges flattening with concern. All hunters, switch to visual confirmation only. Something's interfering with our... The rest of his sentence was cut off by a sound that made every Nexorian scale stand on end. Laughter. Not the nervous laughter of prey, but the cold, confident chuckle of a predator who's just cornered its next meal. It seemed to come from everywhere at once. Commander Chen's voice rippled through the forest, carried by precisely calibrated acoustic projectors. "Welcome to Earth, gentlemen. We've been expecting you." The hunting party instinctively formed a defensive circle, weapons raised. Vixatal's training kicked in as he barked orders. "Maintain formation. They're trying to intimidate us with simple acoustic tricks. Remember, we are the hunters here." "Are you sure about that?" The voice came from directly behind him this time. Vixatal spun around, plasma rifle ready, but saw nothing except shadows and trees. That's when the first human revealed themselves. One moment there was empty air, the next a figure in combat armor seemed to coalesce from the darkness itself. The adaptive camouflage made it look like a piece of night had decided to take human form. Lieutenant Wong stood there, completely exposed, yet radiating a confidence that made the young Nexorian hunters unconsciously take a step back. Her helmet's external speakers carried her voice with perfect clarity. "You know, where I come from, it's considered rude to drop by for dinner without bringing a gift." Before any of the aliens could respond, she vanished, not with any dramatic special effect, but simply ceased to be visible between one blink and the next. "Impossible," one of the young hunters shouted. "Their technology level, the scans showed exactly what we wanted them to show," came another voice, this time from above. Commander Chen's team had spent years practicing the art of psychological warfare. They knew exactly how to turn confidence into confusion, and confusion into fear. Vixatal tried to rally his hunters. "Stand firm, they're just using basic stealth technology. Switch to thermal imaging." "Good idea," Chen's voice approved. Then, all around the hunting party, the forest seemed to bloom with heat signatures, hundreds of them, moving in impossible patterns, appearing and disappearing like fever dreams. "Having trouble with your sensors?" Lieutenant Rodriguez's voice taunted. "Maybe you should have done more research before choosing your hunting grounds." The first direct contact came without warning. One of the younger hunters felt a tap on his shoulder. He whirled around to find himself face to face with a human in full combat gear. Before he could react, the human gave him a small wave and disappeared. Panic began to set in. The hunters fired their weapons at shadows, plasma bolts hitting nothing but trees and empty air. Each shot revealed their own positions more clearly to the human forces surrounding them. "Stop wasting energy," Vixatal commanded. "They're trying to make us reveal ourselves." "Oh, we don't need you to do that," Chen's voice came again. "We've been tracking you since before you entered the solar system. Those stealth systems you're so proud of, they're about as subtle as a fireworks display to our sensors." As if to demonstrate her point, precise shots from human weapons began to pick off pieces of the Nexorians' equipment. A communications array here, a sensor pod there. Not killing shots, but surgical strikes that systematically stripped away their technological advantages. "This is impossible," Crixenor whispered, his young voice shaking. "They're supposed to be primitive. They're supposed to be prey." A soft chuckle answered him, this time from what seemed like inches away. "Kid, humanity hasn't been prey for a very, very long time. We just let people think that because, well, it's more fun this way." The hunting party's formation had completely broken down. They stood in a loose cluster now, weapons pointing outward, jumping at every sound and shadow. Their advanced hunting gear, supposedly the pinnacle of Nexorian technology, had been reduced to little more than fancy decoration. Commander Chen decided it was time for the final lesson. At her signal, her entire team decloaked simultaneously, surrounding the aliens in a perfect circle. Each human stood in a relaxed but ready stance, their advanced combat suits making them look like creatures of living shadow. "Now then," Chen spoke, stepping forward, "I believe this is the part where we discuss the terms of your surrender. Unless, of course, you'd like to continue with your hunt." Vixatal looked at his terrified young charges, then back at the humans who had so thoroughly outmaneuvered them. For the first time in his life, he felt the unfamiliar sensation of being prey. "How?" he managed to ask. "Our intelligence, all our data showed exactly what we wanted it to show," Chen finished for him. "You see, we learned a long time ago that looking harmless is one of the most powerful advantages you can have. When everyone underestimates you, they never see the trap until it's too late. The commander walked closer, her movements deliberately slow and predatory. Here's today's lesson. Humanity didn't survive and thrive by being the strongest or the fastest. We did it by being the smartest, the most adaptable, and, she allowed herself a small grin behind her visor, the most devious when we need to be. The Nexorian hunting party stood in stunned silence as they realized the full extent of their situation. They hadn't been hunting prey. They had been used as training exercises for human special forces. By the way, Chen added casually, those cat videos you were laughing about earlier, we've been using them to train our AI systems in predatory movement patterns for decades. Amazing what you can learn from watching nature's perfect hunters, isn't it? The night was filled with the sound of weapons powering down as, one by one, the Nexorian hunters surrendered. They had come seeking to teach humans their place in the galactic hierarchy. Instead, they had learned a valuable lesson about appearances and assumptions, and somewhere in the command center, General Thompson finished his coffee with a satisfied smile. Welcome to Earth indeed. Hunt leader Vixatal had faced many dangerous situations in his career, but none quite like this. His hunting party stood in what he now realized was a perfectly engineered kill box, with every possible escape route blocked by human special forces. The worst part wasn't the tactical disadvantage. It was the humans' relaxed postures, as if they'd done this 1,000 times before. Commander Chen stepped forward, her combat suit's adaptive camouflage settling into a matte black finish. You know what I find interesting? You came here thinking you'd found the perfect training ground for your younglings. Turns out we've been using you for our own training exercise. Impossible! Vixatal snarled, though his confidence was clearly shaken. We are the greatest hunters in the known galaxy. Are you, though? Lieutenant Wong's voice carried a note of genuine curiosity. Because from where we're standing, you guys walked into an obvious trap, lost control of the situation, and failed to notice that we've been herding you exactly where we wanted you for the past hour. As if to demonstrate her point, holographic displays sprang to life around them, showing the hunting party's movement patterns. Every step, every tactical decision they'd made had been anticipated and countered before they'd even thought of it. One of the younger Nexorians, driven by panic and wounded pride, suddenly raised his plasma rifle. Before he could fire, 3 things happened simultaneously. His weapon disappeared from his hands, he found himself face down in the dirt, and a human voice said, "Nice try, kid. Points for spirit, minus several million for tactical awareness." Commander Chen knelt beside the pinned Nexorian. We disabled your weapon's power cells 20 minutes ago. What you're holding is basically an expensive club. The revelation hit the hunting party like a physical blow. They began checking their weapons, only to find them all completely powerless. But our systems showed full power, Crixenor stammered. Your systems have been showing you what we wanted them to show since you entered Earth's atmosphere, Rodriguez explained, almost apologetically. It's kind of our thing. Vixatal, seeing his last options evaporating, attempted a desperate gambit. Our ship has automated defense systems. If we don't return... You mean this ship? Chen interrupted, bringing up a holographic display of the Nexorian vessel. The image showed human engineers swarming over it, their tools interfacing with its systems. We took control of that about 10 minutes after you landed. Your automated systems now think everything's perfectly fine. Amazing what you can do with a few lines of code and access to your communication protocols. The Nexorian hunt leader's hunting ridges drooped in defeat. You could have killed us at any time. Yes, Chen agreed, but that wouldn't have been nearly as educational for either of us. She gestured, and her team began moving forward, their movements precise and coordinated. You see, we've been watching your species for a while now. You're not bad hunters, really. You're just limited. You think in straight lines, predator versus prey, strong versus weak. Humans, Lieutenant Wong added, we think differently. We can be predator or prey, weak or strong, depending on what the situation requires. It's called adaptability. To demonstrate, she triggered her suit's camouflage system, cycling through various patterns, from perfect invisibility to mimicking Nexorian battle armor. We learn, we adapt, we overcome, and most importantly, we never, ever show all our cards until we need to. Vixatal looked around at his thoroughly demoralized hunting party, then back at the humans who had so completely outmaneuvered them. What happens now? Commander Chen's response was not what any of them expected. Now? Now we talk. Because despite this rather elaborate demonstration, humanity isn't actually interested in making enemies. We just wanted to make sure you understood exactly who and what you were dealing with. She deactivated her helmet's opacity, showing her face to the aliens. You came here looking to hunt what you thought was prey. Instead, you found equals, maybe even future allies. If your people are willing to learn from this experience. The tension in the air slowly began to shift from hostile to something more complex. The young Nexorian hunters, their initial fear fading, were looking around with newfound respect and more than a little curiosity at the human technology that had so thoroughly defeated them. Your hunting skills are impressive, Chen continued, but they're focused entirely on the kill. Humans, we learned long ago that true hunting is about understanding your target, adapting to their strengths, and knowing when not to strike. Sometimes the best hunt is the one that ends in mutual respect rather than conquest. Crixenor, still young enough to be more curious than proud, asked, "You would share your knowledge with us after we came here to hunt you?" "Kid," Commander Chen smiled, "you just gave us the best tactical training exercise we've had in months. I'd say that deserves something in return." The night air, which had been filled with tension and the promise of violence, began to carry something new, the possibility of understanding between two species who had both thought they knew exactly what the other was, only to discover they had much to learn from each other. The sunrise over the Rocky Mountains painted the sky in brilliant colors as the Nexorian hunting party stood before their ship, now thoroughly examined by human engineers. Hunt leader Vixital faced Commander Chen, his posture displaying a mix of humility and newfound respect. "The High Council will never believe this," he said, shaking his head. "We came here expecting to find prey, and instead you found out that the galaxy is more complex than you thought," Chen finished. "Don't feel too bad about it. You're not the first species to underestimate humanity, and you probably won't be the last." General Thompson had arrived on site, carrying his ever-present coffee cup. "The diplomatic team is ready to draft our official response to your government, unless you'd prefer to tell them yourself." Crixenor, who had spent the last few hours excitedly asking questions about human technology, stepped forward. "Hunt leader permission to speak?" Vixital nodded, curious about what his youngest hunter had to say. "We should tell them everything, about how the humans turned our own hunting techniques against us, about their technology, their adaptability, about how they could have killed us, but chose to teach us instead." His hunting ridges lifted with enthusiasm. "This could change everything about how we approach hunting." Commander Chen smiled. "The kid gets it. There's more to being an apex predator than just having the sharpest claws or the deadliest weapons. Sometimes the most dangerous creature is the one that knows when not to strike." "Besides," Lieutenant Wong added, grinning, "we've already prepared a detailed report for your council, including video highlights of tonight's exercise. We thought they might find it educational." The message that went out to the Nexorian homeworld that day was unlike anything the High Council had ever received. It included full documentation of the hunt, sensor logs showing how thoroughly the humans had controlled the entire encounter, and a formal invitation for cultural and technological exchange. "Your people have much to teach about direct combat and hunting techniques," General Thompson said, finally finishing his coffee. "And we have quite a bit to share about strategy, technology, and thinking outside the box. Seems like a fair trade." Vixital looked at his young charges, seeing how their initial fear had transformed into fascination. "The Council will be resistant to change. We have been the galaxy's apex predators for so long." "Then maybe it's time to redefine what that means," Chen suggested. "Being the best hunters in the galaxy shouldn't just be about who has the most impressive kill count. It should be about understanding, adaptation, and knowing which fights are worth fighting." As the Nexorian ship prepared for departure, now carrying not just a humbled hunting party, but also a human diplomatic liaison, Crixenor made one final observation that summed up their experience. "You know what the most impressive thing about humans is?" he asked his hunt leader. "They didn't just defeat us, they made us want to learn from them." Commander Chen watched the ship lift off, its course set for the Nexorian homeworld. "Think they learned their lesson?" she asked General Thompson. Oh, I think they learned several, he replied, already pouring another cup of coffee. Most importantly, they learned that Earth isn't a hunting ground. It's a classroom. And class is always in session. The story of the Nexorian hunting party that went looking for prey and found teachers instead became legendary in both cultures. It marked the beginning of an unusual but effective partnership between two species that had both thought they were the galaxy's ultimate predators, only to discover that true superiority lies not in dominance, but in the wisdom to know when to hunt and when to learn. As for Commander Chen and her team, they had a new training scenario to add to their program. How to turn alien hunters into allies in 3 easy steps. Step 1. Let them think they're the predators. Step 2. Show them they're not. Step 3. Teach them to be better.